Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure the only words I've heard recently are striker, centre forward, number 9, goal scorer. It is literally all anyone is talking about with regards to Manchester United, and it's obvious to see why. Last season we did not score enough goals, our strikers did not score enough goals, we need to address it this summer. And the current name on everyone's lips is not Victor Gyökeres because of some slightly concerning news regarding him, but it's actually Hugo Ekitike. So today we're going to take a look at how good he actually is. Now, first things first, I'm actually quite pleased with this transfer rumour because this is a player that I've seen quite a lot of, from his very early days in France to his time with PSG and also his time with Frankfurt. So this is actually someone I've watched quite a lot, and I feel that we can talk about him with a degree of confidence. What are you getting as a player? You're getting a 6'2" striker, which everyone likes these days. Everyone seems to like these big, powerful, quick target man strikers. But Ekitike isn't that. Yes, he's 6'2", but he's not a physical monster. You know, he's not someone who's constantly going to physically battle against centre-backs. In fact, he wants to do quite the opposite. This is a complete technician package that we are talking about. And for me personally, that's quite nice to be able to say that, right? Because we haven't always had that at United, particularly in the past 2 seasons. It would be nice to have a technician up front. Now, to be honest, when looking at stats, it's actually quite difficult to prove that a player is a technician, but I think the fact that he has a high volume of touches and attempts and completes a lot of passes is a fairly good sign. He is someone who wants to get involved and he wants to get on the ball, and also his heat map, the fact that he plays across the front line. So he doesn't just play in between the 2 centre-backs, he's also happy to peel into wider areas, and that sort of suggests that he has quite a complete technical base. If he is able to operate in different areas of the pitch, that is probably suggesting that his work with the ball is quite good, and that is true. In terms of his work with the ball, he likes to do it away from the centre-backs, which doesn't immediately make sense for a striker, because striker is literally the closest position to centre-backs, but very often he is trying to move away from these players. So he's trying to create half a yard of space for himself, pick up the ball, and where possible, look to get on the turn and look to play forward. That's the sort of player he is. So we're not talking about a target man here. We're not talking about someone where, you know, you've got the ball with Onana, you go long from the goal kick, you ask Ekitike to hold the ball up for a few seconds so that others can get near him. He's not that sort of player. It will not work if you use Ekitike in that way. PSG learned that the hard way. He's not that sort of player. If you want Ekitike to hold the ball up and you want him to be effective against defenders, you need to get people around him. You need to get runners around him, people that can take defenders away to give Ekitike more space. So for example, if you do want to go relatively direct to him, you need to make sure that your inside forwards are incredibly close, that your central midfielders are nearby, but also that your wing backs are in advanced positions as well. I think it's also important to make sure you're going into his feet rather than his head or his chest. His aerial duel percentage is actually pretty good. He's not bad in the air. He jumps quite early to win the ball, but he's not a massive aerial presence in my opinion. He's not someone who I feel would come into the Premier League and instantly battle the likes of Gabriel. I don't think he would have major success there. I don't think he's a great target man, but if you go into his feet, allow him to drop off, then you get a real linking man. Now, when it comes to his linking play, the reason he's so good is because technically he's very strong. He controls the ball really well. It allows him to move away from the opposition, and if you've got runners around him, that obviously gives him time and space. And when he's got time and space, he likes to be quite aggressive. He's a forward-thinking player. Now, I'm not talking about a striker that is like Harry Kane, who's going to, you know, ping a ball out wide to a left winger or split a defence with a beautiful pass between on a consistent basis. Not really Ekitike's game. He's a bit more of a silky player. He's quite an aesthetic player despite his height. He wants to carry the ball forward, he wants to glide, he's got good footwork, and almost at times plays a little bit more like a winger without actually quite being a winger. But he likes to take people on, he likes to be quite aggressive with his actions, trying to move forward. And also, I would say quite ambitious with his actions, looking for flicks around the corner, looking for little bits of skill, first time passes, to try and bring his teammates into play. And those of you that have watched that type of footballer before will know what that means. That means sometimes in a compilation, for example, you're going to see amazing moments where he flicks the ball around the corner with a beautiful bit of skill and it completely cuts apart the opposition's defence because they can't physically anticipate what he's going to do. It will also mean at times it's going to be a little bit too ambitious, a little bit too risky, and he's actually just going to lose the ball for his side and perhaps become a little bit frustrating. So I think Ekitike, for him to work in the Premier League, if we're talking about Manchester United here, then the importance would be getting separation away from the centre-backs. If he's up against them, I fear for him a little bit. If he can give himself half a yard of space, though, and look to take them on, I think he'll be very good. I think his passing is good, and his creativity, his flair, at times will make him really exciting, and at times a little frustrating. So far we have discussed his linking work in the middle of the pitch, but as we saw earlier in his heat map, he also likes to operate in the wide areas. This is a player who likes to get into the channels. So in one moment he's almost like a false nine in the centre, coming towards the ball and linking play, but in another moment he's a channel striker who's going to spin in behind. And that's why I say he is quite a complete technical package, because he can play in different ways and do different things. And just fundamentally, it's good to sign a footballer like that, because it means that they can play in different systems, under different managers, in different circumstances, and do different jobs. So that's actually quite a promising sign about Ekitike. He's quite complete in the way that he plays. In terms of his work in the channels, his acceleration is brilliant. And this is where I kind of compare him a little bit to a winger, particularly on the left-hand side. He wants to get into these positions. He wants to square up a defender, especially if a centre-back is there. He would love to bring a centre-back into this position. He wants to take them on. When he's working on the left-hand side, his aim is to take them on, to force them back, and then shift inside, because he is very right-footed. We'll come back to that shortly. But he wants to then move inside the pitch. In terms of his work on the right-hand side, it's a little bit different. Again, he is very one-footed, so when he shifts to the right channel, it's not so much about looking to come inside and shoot for himself. It's more about trying to create opportunities for others. So when he's in these positions, he's looking to get more towards this area and look to put balls into the box. And again, just to make the point, if your striker is working in the channels, what do we need once again? Runners. He needs players near him. Ekitike is a player who flows when he's got teammates to combine with, to link with, to interchange with, so Manchester United would need to make sure that they do that. So I think so far we've got a pretty good idea of what Ekitike is as a player. He's a technician. He can play in the middle of the pitch, he can get separation away from defenders, he's a decent passer, he's got a little bit of flair, he can dribble with the ball, he can peel into wide zones, he can spin in behind opposition defence with his pace. We've got quite a complete player there. But obviously the big question when we're talking about a striker, and I mentioned it right at the start of the video, is scoring goals. And that's probably what you guys want to talk about next. How good is Ekitike in the penalty area, putting the ball into the back of the net? And his numbers this season initially don't look too bad. He's been a pretty decent goal scorer, got a pretty good goal return, and generally throughout his career, apart from when he hasn't been used right, I think he has been a good goal scorer. However, I'm not convinced by him. So we'll start off with the movement, and I would say this is a more positive side of his game. Ekitike is a busy player. He's not someone who is often flat-footed in the penalty area. Instead, he's on the move. He's looking to dart about. He's looking to be quite busy, and in particular, try and get across the near post. So let's say the ball is on the right-hand side with Ahmad, for example. He's looking to cross into the box. Ekitike is likely to be in this position here. Now, the good thing about that is very often, if a ball is coming flashing low across the box, Ekitike is able to get there, right? He's able to nip in last second in front of a centre-back and potentially get himself a good opportunity. However, if he is relying on sort of being at the near post, in my opinion, that tends to reduce the number of goals you're going to score with a header, because if you're across the near post, you're starting outside of the goal posts. It's actually quite difficult to direct a high cross into the box. Whereas if you peel onto the back post more often, in this position here, it's easier to redirect the ball back at goal with headers. And this is why I don't think Ekitike is a great aerial threat in the box. I think low crosses, things like that, I think he's quite good. Aerially, again, he's tall, he jumps well, but I don't think he is a great aerial threat at the moment, but he is still only 22 years old, so perhaps he'll add that to his game. Now, in terms of the rest of his finishing, you know, shooting with your feet, we're playing football here, I want him to add more variety, but also more consistency to his shooting, which initially doesn't make much sense because they seem to be different ideas, right? But let me just explain myself here. I want to see more consistency in terms of ball striking. I don't think he connects with the ball well enough, regularly enough. However, at the same time, I want to see more variety in his shooting, because at the moment he shoots way too often with his right foot. I've said it a few times, he is quite a one-footed player. He is always looking to use the right foot, doesn't shoot with his left foot very often at all. You can see that in the numbers here. He's always choosing his right foot if he can, and that's not a problem, you know, if you're very clinical on your right. If your right foot is a weapon, you know, a lethal finisher, then great, work the ball onto your right foot and get that ball in the back of the net, mate. Just keep doing what you're doing. But the problem is, Ekitike's right-footed shooting isn't that consistent. I've said already, the ball striking isn't amazing. So if that's what you're relying on, it's a little bit questionable. Especially when, let's say, you are in a position where you can shoot well with the left foot, but you don't want to. You're trying to work it onto your right foot, which isn't great itself. It starts to become a little bit of a problem, because it means there are situations where naturally you should be shooting on your left, but because he's taking these extra touches or just taking a little bit of more time to set himself to get the ball onto his right foot, taking that extra time in the Premier League against Premier League centre-backs probably isn't going to happen for him. And this is where my concerns start to come in with Ekitike. I think he's a really good player. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think as a profile, there's a lot to like because of the technical side of the game, the athletic side of the game as well. However, in terms of as a pure goal scorer, I have questions, particularly with a link to Manchester United. Signing another young striker who isn't necessarily a bagsman feels a little bit concerning. For me, Ekitike will be fine at a club where he's not required to be the main man goal scoring go-to player. You know, if he was asked to play like Erling Haaland at Manchester City where he gets all the goals, it's a bit of a problem. If he was asked to play in a club where you've got goal scorers around him, then I think it's more okay. So maybe if we get recruitment right, that can be Manchester United. You know, someone like Cunha is going to contribute goals. And Buemo, if we sign him, is someone who would contribute goals. Bruno Fernandes, maybe Ahmad. If you get those profiles around Ekitike, then maybe it's not too bad because he's not required to be the main man. Everyone is chipping in with goals. That could work quite nicely. However, if United end up in a world where we are really looking for goals from our striker, a guaranteed goal scorer up front, I have question marks at this moment in time in his career. Again, in terms of potential, it's obviously huge. He can obviously be a great player because the skill set is amazing. But right now, the pressure of Manchester United, the need to improve immediately, I do just have slight concerns, particularly when we're talking about the price involved. So, to sort of sum it all up, Ekitike is a very good player, big fan of him, watch him, entertaining. Bags of fun, good fun to watch. Actually being efficient and ruthless in the final third, not at the moment, but he is just 22 years old. The potential is sky high. If he does move, someone's going to get themselves a good player, but not necessarily a player that's going to score a load of goals in his first season. It will probably take a bit of time. So I guess the question is, for you guys, do you want that at Manchester United? Do you want a striker who is going to come in and grab 30 goals and be the main man? If so, you probably don't go for Ekitike. If you want someone more well-rounded, someone more technical, who will get the best out of players around him and chip in with some goals along the way, then Ekitike might be your man. That is my question for you in the comments below. What would you like to see? And do you think Ekitike is the right sort of profile? Let me know what you think. But apart from that, I believe we are finished for today's video. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.